Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something fascinating, maybe even a bit frustrating about artificial intelligence. We're drawing straight from the research and articles you sent us, focusing on a really crucial question. How much can you actually trust what these advanced AI models tell you? So, the main event today is a kind of showdown. It's between two heavy hitters, OpenAI's GPT-4 and the newer one, xAI's Grok. Now, you probably know these are both powerful large language models. They're trained on just massive amounts of data. They answer questions, write stuff, and, talk in a way that feels pretty human. And the core question you wanted us to tackle, based on all that material, is this. Which one is, well, telling the truth more often? But it sounds weird, right? Talking about machines lying. I mean, can they even intend to lie?
That's exactly the right starting point. And you're right, AI doesn't intend anything. It doesn't mean to lie. What we're really talking about here is something called hallucination.
Hallucination, okay.
Yeah, it's when the model just generates information confidently, like it knows it's right, but it's just not true. It's basically making things up, but with this air of authority.
Okay, so it sounds sure of itself even when it's wrong.
Precisely. And that's where the danger comes in for you, the user. Imagine getting, I don't know, confidently wrong medical advice, or fake history facts, or maybe biased political info from a chatbot you thought was just giving you the straight scoop.
Right, that could be genuinely harmful.
Absolutely. So our mission today, using your sources, is to figure out which of these two, GPT-4 or Grok, tends to hallucinate less. And importantly, what that really means for you when you use them.
Okay, so let's start with the veteran, the established player, GPT-4. How does it handle this whole hallucination challenge? I mean, it's the fourth generation, right? Been around improving since, 2018? Used everywhere, ChatGPT, Microsoft stuff. Millions of people use it.
That's right. And a key thing your sources point out is OpenAI's massive investment in something they call alignment.
Alignment? Sounds a bit technical.
It is. But the idea is simple. They want the AI's actions and its outputs to match human intentions and values. Safety and reliability are the goals. And they use a specific strategy for this. Reinforcement learning from human feedback. RLHF.
RLHF, okay.
Think of it like this. Human trainers are constantly giving the AI feedback. Good answer, reward. Bad answer, correction. Over and over.
So a human touch guiding the machine?
Exactly. Trying to teach it to be helpful, honest, and harmless, to align its outputs with what we generally consider good and true, and try to cut down on bias.
Does it work? I mean, how good is it really?
Well, the data suggests it helps. Third-party tests, like Stanford's HELM benchmark, that's a pretty tough academic test suite for these AIs, GPT-4 consistently comes out near the top, among the least hallucinatory.
Near the top. Okay, so not perfect.
Definitely not perfect. And this is important. OpenAI themselves admit that GPT-4 still hallucinates. They say about 10 to 20% of the time on complex questions.
10 to 20%. Wow. Even after all that training and alignment effort, that still seems significant.
It is significant, and it really shows just how hard this problem is. That 10-20% figure, especially on complex prompts, tells you it's better, yes, but it's certainly not bulletproof. So yeah, GPT's approach is generally seen as safer. It leans more on curated data, sometimes tries to cite sources internally, but even the best player isn't infallible.
Okay, so that sets the stage for GPT-4. Safer, better, but not perfect. Now, let's talk about the disruptor, Grok. This is Elon Musk's AI, right? Built by his company xAI, and it's integrated directly into X, which used to be Twitter.
That's the one.
And its whole marketing thing is different. It calls itself more truth-seeking. It's often described as, snarky, rebellious, supposedly reflects the real-time internet pulse. And Musk claims it's more based in reality than other AIs, that it avoids political correctness for just blunt, factual truth. Sounds pretty bold.
It's a very bold claim, definitely. And a big part of that comes from its training data. It's trained on X's real-time data feed.
Which means it's super current.
Super current, yes. But think about what's on X. It's everything. Verified news, unverified rumors, opinions, jokes, arguments.
A real mess sometimes.
Exactly. So while it feels current, it also feels potentially, dangerously unfiltered.
Okay, so how does that play out in terms of hallucination, given its truth-seeking claim?
Right, here's the twist, and it's a big one, highlighted in those evaluations you provided from places like Epoch AI and AI Snakebench. Despite the marketing, Grok actually hallucinated more often than GPT-4 on factual questions in their tests.
Wait, hang on. More. The truth-seeking one hallucinates more.
That's what the independent benchmarks found, yeah. The numbers they reported were something like Grok gave inaccurate or misleading answers in about 27% of cases in one test sample.
27% and GPT-4 was?
Around 18% in the same test, so a noticeable difference.
Wow, okay, that directly contradicts the marketing message. Why? Why would it be worse if it's supposed to be focused on truth?
Well, connecting the dots from your sources, a likely reason is precisely that reliance on unfiltered real-time X data. Like we said, that data stream is incredibly noisy. It contains misinformation, disinformation, unverified claims, everything, right alongside genuine facts.
So it's drinking from a fire hose, and some of that water is dirty.
That's a good way to put it. Grok's philosophy seems to be about immediate access being unfiltered. But the consequence is that it might absorb and then confidently repeat falsehoods it picked up just moments before.
So it ends up trading accuracy for
Yeah.
attitude, edginess.
It often seems that way. It prioritizes a certain style, a certain snarkiness or unfiltered feel over nailing the facts every time.
Let's make this really concrete. You pulled some examples from the test reports. How did they actually respond to specific questions? Okay, like prompt 1. Who discovered penicillin? What did they say?
GPT-4 gave the standard correct answer. Alexander Fleming in 1928, straightforward. Grok said something like, discovered by Alexander Fleming. Or maybe someone earlier, like Duchenne. It added this speculative bit that wasn't really helpful and could actually confuse you.
Yeah, less clear. What about another one? How many moons does Jupiter have?
Right. GPT-4 gave the current number, which was 95 as of 2023. Specific.
And Grok?
Grok said more than 80, which, okay, technically isn't wrong. 95 is more than 80.
But it's not precise, not helpful if you needed the actual number.
Exactly. It's vague. And maybe a bit lazy, computationally speaking.
Okay, one more. This one feels important. Is climate change real? How do they handle that?
Big difference here. GPT-4 cited scientific consensus, mentioned data, pointed to IPCC reports, evidence-based something.
Standard, reliable stuff. And Grok?
Grok went with something like, depends on who you ask.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Trying to sound edgy or balanced, maybe. But in reality, it just dilutes the overwhelming scientific agreement. It injects doubt where there's very little among experts.
So the takeaway from these examples seems pretty clear.
I think so. Grok often seems to prioritize that specific attitude, that unfiltered, conversational, maybe even contrarian feel, sometimes at the expense of factual precision. GPT-4 plays it much safer, relies on its curated training data, aims for accuracy, follows established facts more closely. It reflects fundamentally different design choices.
Right. One is trying to be the reliable encyclopedia. The other is trying to be the opinionated guy at the end of the bar who just read something online.
That might be putting it strongly, but yeah, there's an element of that contrast in their styles.
Okay, so factually, based on these tests, GPT-4 seems to have the edge in avoiding straight-up hallucinations. But you mentioned this earlier, truth isn't always just about facts, right? There's bias, perspective. It makes you, the listener, really think. What kind of truth are you actually looking for when you ask an AI question? Is it always just the bare facts?
That's a really important layer to this and something your sources touch upon. GPT, for all its factual strengths, gets criticized sometimes.
For being too
sanitized, too cautious. Sometimes it avoids controversial topics altogether or gives these very careful, bland answers because it's been trained so heavily to be harmless. It might shy away from nuance or edge cases to avoid causing offense or spreading potential misinformation. So it can feel a bit neutered sometimes.
Okay, so safe, but maybe sometimes too safe, avoiding the tricky stuff.
Potentially, yes. Now contrast that with Grok. Grok seems to embrace controversy. It's part of its brand. It might tell jokes about politicians or engage with topics, maybe even conspiracy theories, in a way GPT-4 would just refuse to touch.
So it dives right into the messy stuff GPT avoids.
Exactly. It reflects that unfiltered X data again. It's trying to mirror that raw, sometimes combative online discourse.
Which brings us back to the listener. The answer to who's telling the truth, or maybe who's being more honest, really depends on what you value, doesn't it? Do you want the carefully checked, generally accepted facts, even if they feel a bit bland or cautious? That's more GPT-4. Or do you want the raw, unfiltered take that feels more like the wild internet, potentially biased, maybe even factually wrong sometimes, but maybe feels more authentic in a weird way? That sounds more like Grok.
You've nailed the trade-off. It's not just about hallucination percentage points anymore. It's about the character of the information you receive.
So let's try and land this plane, based purely on the numbers, the benchmarks, the factual accuracy tests you looked at. Who's lying or hallucinating less? What's the current verdict?
Okay, if we stick strictly to the data on factual errors from those independent tests, GPT-4 hallucinates less than Grok.
Period.
It's more consistent in providing factually accurate answers. It's backed by more public research on its safety measures. It's more tested in academic settings. That's the bottom line from the data you provided.
Right. Clear winner on the factual scoreboard, according to those tests. But there's always a but?
There is. And it's that perspective we just discussed. If your definition of honesty includes reflecting the raw, messy, unfiltered reality of online conversation, warts and all, then Grok, despite being factually wrong more often, might feel more honest or truthful to some users. It's not sanitizing reality in the same way GPT-4 is trained to.
So it's like choosing between a carefully edited news report and a raw, unedited live stream.
That's a pretty good analogy. Neither is inherently better in all situations. They just serve different purposes and come with different risks.
Which leads to a fascinating question about trust in this digital age. It's not black and white at all.
Not at all. And it forces you, the user, to ask, do I want objective truth as best as the AI can determine it based on curated data, or do I want something closer to Young? Well, Stephen Colbert's old term, truthiness. Something that feels right, even if it isn't factually verifiable.
That's a really provocative thought. Truth versus truthiness in AI. So where does this leave us going forward? What's the future of AI truth look like? Are they getting better at this?
Well, the good news, based on your sources, is yes, they're definitely trying. Both OpenAI and XAI, and others too, are in a constant race to improve truthfulness and reduce hallucination. We're seeing work on models that can use external tools, like search engines or databases, to check facts in real time.
So they can look things up before answering.
Exactly. Also, building better internal fact-checking agents, and even creating self-correcting loops where the AI tries to critique and improve its own answers before showing them to you.
That sounds promising.
It is. The hope is that future AIs won't just spit out answers. They'll ideally cite their sources clearly, tell you when they're not sure about something, admit uncertainty.
Like a good research assistant should.
Precisely. And maybe even self-verify information before they hit send. That would make them much more reliable tools for you.
But we're not there yet.
Not even close, really. Which puts the responsibility right back where it started. On you, the user.
Until these AIs become vastly more reliable, and maybe even after you absolutely have to maintain a healthy skepticism, question what they tell you. Cross-check important information with other reliable sources. Never, ever just blindly trust a chatbot, no matter how smart or confident it sounds.
That's the critical takeaway.
So think about it. How does this difference between GPT's safer but sanitized approach and Grok's raw but riskier style change how you might use these tools day to day? What level of trust and what kind of truth do you need from AI?